Is this the awning of my dreams? Let's discuss the Kammok Crosswing awning. For several years now, I've been living in the car and I've been using an awning that I just kind of put together. And I use just a normal tarp and suction cups to hold it up and just poles in the corners, and I have to tie down the guy lines. It it wasn't the most sturdy, and it took a while to set up because you have to climb up on the car, especially if you're a short person and you have a lifted car. You gotta climb up, get the suction cups on there, clean off the area first, and then get the suction cup because if you forget and it's dusty, it's just gonna pop right off. I mean, I use it quite often, but I wanted something that was just easier, that could just pop up, and especially something that I could use to leave open and go to sleep with the window open, just in case it rained overnight. I just like to have the window open just to keep the ventilation going, and if it's warmer out, just nice to vent the air. And if it rains, I don't know how many times I have to wake up, reach across the front seat, flip the key ignition on, and then, not the ignition all the way, but, and then close up the windows as much as I could, turn it off, and go back to sleep. I did not enjoy doing that too often. And I did use the suction cup awning system just to sleep many times, and it worked great. You just have to be aware of the weather and know that it's not going to be too windy because it does flap around quite a bit, and it could fall off if there's a good strong gust. This awning here is the Kammok Crosswing, K-M-M-O-K. It was made, the first one on sale as a Kickstarter in 2022. I was through hiking the Appalachian Trail and I got a notification about this awning. So, and it looked like the awning that I've been waiting for all along. Something that you could just pull out. You don't need poles right away unless it's windy, and I'll get to that later. But it's just easy to pull out, just like I showed you when I got out of the car. And there are several lengths it can go. This is the 7-foot model. They do come in a 5-foot model, which would be a little smaller. It might fit more balanced on a normal car. The awning itself can come out to 3 feet, 6.5 feet, and about 9 feet, all the way out. And you don't need poles to hold it up. You can just pull it out and then it'll sustain itself. Let's give you an example here. Right now, this is the shortest setting at 3 feet. This is about 6.5 feet, and it provides a great amount of shade. It's just a big, large area. 7 feet by 6. That's pretty good. But it can also go out to 9 feet, a little further, and that's the extent of how far I'll go. And I will show you that here. Once it's pulled out, you can tighten it up with a little ratcheting system here in the corner. Just to pull the fabric tight, otherwise it'll flap a lot more than you would think. Right now there's no wind, so it's like an ideal situation for this awning. You don't need any poles or anything like that, and this does have a little bit of give, so we'll flap around some when it's windy, especially with the 9-foot reach. Usually when I have it out like this for a longer time, I will put in the poles just to protect it from any kind of weird gusts that might come up. Because I didn't get to it yet, the price. The 7-foot awning is basically $1,000 without shipping. The item I got was from a Kickstarter, so it actually wound up being about $750, which is still amazingly expensive for an awning. But is it worth it? That's the question. Is it something that you would use all the time and something you would appreciate and actually give it the $750 or $1,000 use? We'll get to that in a moment as well. There's a little bit of a breeze coming through, so you can probably see it blowing a little bit. It's coming from that side, so that side's blowing a little bit more. I did just pull the camera into the shade here just to keep it cooler because the sun is quite strong. And that's another advantage, is having an awning, is just having this open area, and then you have some shade and you could put things, you could sit there. And another great thing is there's no pole, so I was able to just put it in the corner and nothing gets in my way. So having something without a pole, it's great. I think the only other awning system I've seen where you can pull it out without a pole system is the one that opens out like a fan that goes around like a trailer or the back of the car. But I think that's even heavier than this one. This one's about 45 pounds, the 7-foot version. And I don't know the price, but I didn't really want anything that goes all the way around because then you can't open the trunk at all. It just didn't look like something that I was hoping for, but this matched all the checkboxes, so I snatched it up. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering, like, why am I going from a basically $50 awning system to a $1,000 awning system? Although I did pay less, the reason is I was never completely happy with that system, and I wanted something that was just easier to use so you would use it more often. If an awning takes a long time to set up and a long time to take down every time, you look around at the situation, judge whether you want to put it up or it's worth putting it up, or do you think you have to take it down right away, things like that. But with this, as long as it's not super windy, you come out of the car and you just pull it out. And if you want to put it away, you just hit the release lever and just slide it back in, and within seconds it's closed back to normal and you don't have to worry about putting it away. There was no like, oh, I made the wrong choice setting it up. No, because you could just put it right back. And when it's windy though, you can put in the poles, and they do sell poles for the Crosswing, but it's about $100. And if you already have one of those telescoping rods, you can actually use that and tie some string to it in the corners, just the way their $100 rods poles are, and it works the same. So you could do that and save $50 from it. And when it's really windy, you actually need to set up guy lines as well. I'll get to that in a moment. The website does sell guy lines that just connect without the poles, and you could use that. But if you set up a guy line, you're kind of pulling it down. The guy line helps keep the corners from lifting up. The poles keep the corners from lifting up or going down. So I think if you're just gonna put anything up, I think it's worth it to put the poles, and then if it's even windier, put the guy line out. The entire awning comes with a T-rack with the opening here, so you can actually move it anywhere, lock it in place, and attach things to it. You can slide it over. I considered actually putting a T-rack in there and putting a tarp in and attaching it to the front corner just to keep the blowing rain from the side from hitting us, or to help protect it from the sun from that way. There were several things that were unknown about the awning when I signed up for the Kickstarter, because really there were no reviews. There was one review I saw from someone who kind of was associated with the company, and he just basically showed the facts. I have used it for over 6,000 miles for the last 3 months, almost every day. We've basically been living out of the car as we explored the Rocky Mountains of Canada. So I feel like I have a lot more experience with this awning than most people, because a lot of people that purchase it will go out for weekends or short trips, but not too many people can get away for 3 months at a time. So I will give you my thoughts on my concerns before I purchased it and what I noticed. One of my biggest concerns was rain drain. Now, with like RVs and the ones with the poles and even the tarp, you can set a pole much shorter and keep one higher. So you can divert all the drip to one corner, so it just kind of drips down the pole. Having it go down the pole or the guy lines reduces splatter because it just runs down. So that is ideal. And you see a lot of people setting up their tarp, setting it that way. With this guy, you cannot adjust the corners much. You might have room about that much to flex up and down a little bit, but you don't want to force it, especially if it's $1,000 awning. You want to break the joints, but you only have a little bit of give, so you don't have as much decision making in where you want the water to drain. If you look closely here, this bar is actually touching the tarp itself, and this bar, it's floating above because this is a lower bar. So because of this bar, this side of the fabric is actually higher than that side. Because this is higher at this side, it's a little uneven when you look at it from the top and how the rain will go. The way I park my car to be level, it winds up that the awning is actually slightly tilted forward. So a lot of the rain will come off the front, But of course, only the rain that falls in front of this pole, the rain that falls in front of on this side of the top pole here will drain off that way, or unfortunately, it'll come off the front. I have found that it actually drains fine. The problem is big chunks will drain off that side just fine, but it will drop off the middle. So if you have dirt anywhere underneath, you're going to have to put branches or big rocks or logs that we did. We tried all those things to mitigate dirt splashing. We need something basically to absorb the impact of the water or divert it away from your rock area. Otherwise, it just splashes everywhere and just makes a big mess, especially if you leave your shoes outside of the car. On this half of the awning, it'll go off the one side as well, just like the other. But a lot of times the rain will come off the front because it's not, you can't tilt it at all. So it winds up dripping all along. We've parked the car right next to a picnic table and set it up so it covers most of the picnic table as far as the seat and the table itself. But you have to watch out for this because the rain will come off the edge. And if the table's there, it'll hit the table and just splash everywhere. So you'll kind of get wet regardless. So unfortunately, you can't adjust it to make it all go to one corner. And it still drains okay. It drains well enough that if you have the poles there, and I always put the poles there when it was going to rain hard, just because I didn't want any potential of heavy water collection damaging anything. And it would still pour off. It didn't collect, so it was not a concern. Once you have the poles up, it's fine. I tried adjusting the poles, so one side's a little higher, one side's a little lower. Unfortunately, you can only lower this corner so much before it touches the metal on that side. And I didn't want just any stress on the bars at all. You can kind of lift one side, but it doesn't seem to make too much of a difference. Overall though, the draining of water is acceptable. It doesn't, you can't direct it, but it doesn't hold it where it causes damage. So it'll survive. So it works for that part, not as well as you would hope, but that's what you get when you have a self-supported awning system. You just can't adjust the heights. As far as resistance to wind, it's fairly good. There are small gusts going right now, 10, 15 mile per hour, and it's at the 9-foot setting and there's no real problem. It's just the problem once the wind picks up. And there are several problems with that. One way to help fight the effects of the wind is to have poles set up so this doesn't lift up and down too much, because you don't want that bouncing motion adding stress to the joint. And with the pole there, I have found though, when it's strong enough, the wind will lift this part and it will actually pull this towards the car. And that once was enough to bypass the locking mechanism and just collapse it. So it winds up kind of crooked, and you don't want to try to slide it in crooked. And of course it winds up flapping more because it gave on the fabric. So what I found is when you put up a guy line, like oftentimes with the other tarps, you put the guy line at an angle, like 45-degree angle from the corner. But with this, you don't need any pull this way at all, because you're basically just going to pull along this bar here. So you can just go straight out 90 degrees from the car or just a little off. So the guy line will pull this taut that way, and this will be a little more taut. So the strong winds won't necessarily pull this and release the locking lever. So I find that to be the best way. I did that oftentimes when it was windy. If it was gonna be really windy though, like 40, 45 mile per hour gusts, I would put it away. That's not too many awning systems can resist that, except for the big, heavy like RV ones. And this one's just fabric along the side, so there's no way it can resist that kind of wind. I didn't want the fabric ripping at the joint where it meets the roller. So underneath the awning, they have these two poles, and there are two holes here. And you'll see there's a little aluminum spot, and they catch. The hooks are kind of shaped like that, so that way it slides out easily, and then it locks into place. To get it to release, you need to pull it open a little bit and then quickly close it, and that helps release that. Now we're at the medium level, and you can see the pins pop out again. You see the fabric flapping out more right now because I haven't ratcheted it down. But again, though, this is a Kickstarter model, and it came with a little flaw with these where we had to basically sand it down ourselves for a $100 discount basically. And although I sanded them down as best as I could, I think this one needs a little bit more sanding down, so it catches a little bit. If you look here, you'll find that it's a little uneven in the rolling. I found over the months of use, it doesn't roll perfectly flat as it used to. There aren't any debris in there as far as I can tell, but you can only pull it out so far before you can look at it. The debris that collects on the tarp will actually roll over the back and fall in the crack here. So it's actually well designed. All the water and debris will roll over the top, fall there, and generally fall out. You just need to get like a little brush and kind of brush it every now and then to get everything out. But the water and everything does fall there. So that's a good design. So right now the hooks are set in the medium levels. To close it, you just pull it out, and you notice the little latches are gone, and then you quickly push it in while lifting up just a little bit to help give it easier movement, and then you're off. And you see the fabric isn't rolling up perfectly like it used to. Not sure when it started happening, but there's little ripples in there. It doesn't seem to affect exactly how it rolls up, so it's not too bad a concern. And this fabric does touch this portion, but I have not found any kind of wear. There are marks here, but that's mostly from dirty water that's on top of it, touching it. But so far I haven't seen any kind of wear. I was worried about some wear caused by this part because this black part is square. It's not rough, but it's still a good enough of an angle I thought it might rub it. But so far, whatever fabric they use for the fabric is working great so far. There hasn't been any sign of wear at all. The entire rack is actually, I think it's aluminum. I'm not 100% sure, but you cannot attach a magnet to anything on here. There's nothing that's magnetic at all, except the little latch, the screws. So it's as light as it could probably get at about 45 pounds for the 7-foot model. And it does come with nice little brackets that hook on to, I have a Tula Aero bar, and it has a T-slot, and it fits right in there and screws on. It's only about, basically from the top of the Aero bar to the bottom of the awning, it's probably half a centimeter. So it's as tight as you can get it without being right against it. When I first got this, it was much longer than I thought. I thought the 7-foot would work. I measured it out, but it's much bigger than I thought it should be for my car. But a 5-foot one would be much shorter. So I think the 7-foot one worked out. Unfortunately, the problem is I have a cargo box and a solar panel. So I did move this bar as far forward as I could so I can get the whole awning balanced out. But unfortunately, there's still a lot more weight on this side, especially with the ratcheting mechanism, than the other. I was very concerned at first, especially driving on rough roads and especially washboardy or bumpy roads, that there was potential for damage on the bar itself. But after 6,000 miles and driving probably hundreds of miles on dirt roads, super washboardy roads, some really bumpy roads, hitting some big bumps, there is no sign of wear at all. I was worried that it might lift off, the whole awning would tilt and there'd be a little swell, but the racket worked great and no worries. So far so good. I'm very happy with how it's mounted and how resistant it has been. Once you pull the awning out, there's a little ratcheting system here. This is in the neutral basically, so everything slacks, you can pull on it. But this is the locking point, and when you push it up, it basically ratchets, you can see it rolling, and tightens the fabric. You don't want to do it too much because it'll actually release the locking mechanisms. So you want to do it until it's tight and then leave it in this position and it's locked. And that's the ideal situation for that. Once you're ready to put away, you could pop it to the neutral or open spot and you'll see the fabric go slack and you'll see this roll a little. There it goes. And then you can roll it up. But generally, if it's up, you want to ratchet it up until it's relatively tight and then leave it as is. Another one of my concerns was this corner right here. This corner is very sharp. They did round it off so it's not like you're going to cut your finger with it. Although this corner is pretty sharp. The biggest problem is without a pole coming down, you're going to walk into this thing. With the pole there, you generally would walk into the pole or you'd see the bright shiny pole and you'd avoid it. But with this, you could easily forget that it's there at all and hit it. So my recommendation is either they put something soft on there, or when you get it, you put something soft on there as well. We thought about cutting a portion of a pool noodle to just slide on there once we pull it out, just to protect us from the corner. But Tina and I, we're both very short. I'm 5'6", the taller of us two. And with the 4Runner, on the Tula rack, above the roof rack itself, it's several inches higher than the car. And the car is also lifted, maybe about 2.5 inches front and back. So overall, for me, even at 9 feet out, it does drop a little. It is still perfectly safe for me to walk under. If you're a taller person, you definitely want to do something about this for sure. Even with the pool noodle there, you might still walk into it. So if at night, you might want to put glow sticks or dangle some shiny rope, like reflective rope off of it, or like, I don't know, like the Mylar type things, but something. But it is definitely dangerous, and you definitely something that you need to be aware of. Another thing that could happen when it's windy is you could have it out, and the roller has a spring mechanism. So as you pull the rod, it rolls and kind of rolls it up nicely. If it's extremely windy, like one time there was a storm, when I went to bed, everything was great, or when I got inside, and all of a sudden it just started getting really gusty. So I jumped out and tried to close it, but the wind was lifting this so hard that as I pushed it, the wind only just lifted it higher and it wouldn't roll. So I had to wait until I basically had to hold it out, hope it didn't get worse, wait till there was a break in the gust, and then roll it right away. So with strong winds, definitely put it away before you encounter those strong gusts, because with those gusts, you might get in a situation where you can't roll it up and you're stuck out there when it's windy and raining and you can't do anything about it except to leave it out, which could potentially ruin your expensive awning. Another thing I encountered is it rolls up well and the crossbars make it go in relatively straight, but there is room for error. If you slide it in and you're slightly pushing to the left or slightly pushing to the right, whatever reason you're unbalanced, maybe one of your arms is more tired than the other, and as you push it in, your left kind of overpowers it, or maybe you're standing on a picnic table trying to balance without falling over and stepping on anything. You can push it in slightly off where it doesn't slide into this little insert right away. You might have to pull it out and push to the other side and push in. Right now, I'll just close it naturally let's see if it closes evenly here. Right now, this end is rubbing against this metal cap here. So it looks like it's not going to close. There's maybe 0.5 millimeter or so where it's over. And you can force it, but it's not ideal to do that. So I would have to pull it out and push it back in. On this side, you can see that there's actually maybe 2 or 3 millimeter gap. So we could definitely pull it out and balance it out a little better. Sometimes it'll actually be even more off, especially when it's wet and sticky and heavier. But this is actually okay. Not perfect, but okay enough that it'll actually close. And when it's time to close, you can actually, instead of just locking, you can ratchet it just a little bit so this fabric isn't too loose right here. Perfect. One of the things I found out about this awning that probably should have noticed actually, or thought of before, is when you drive on highways, and let's face it, you're gonna have to drive on highways to get somewhere, to go somewhere. So a lot of the miles will be on highways going relatively fast. The winds will blow this way, and this fabric is connected here by Velcro. And I don't know if you saw, there was a bunch of rocks that just fell out when I peeled it off, but this is all the hook This is the soft Velcro. It's all hooked in here. And I found that the corner seems to be lifting off this portion right here, either because of bugs or dirt or just the loose fabric kind of lifting. It's starting to lift, and the more I drive it, it's starting to lift a little bit more. And I worry that once it lifts enough, the wind's gonna just rip it open all the way. So I'm hoping that Kammok has a solution for future buyers of this product. Maybe a sleeve that goes over and then just with elastic that hooks in here to protect the front of the Velcro. It should be easy to just have something elastic that you can just pull over that holds it against here so it wouldn't slide out. And it's another step when you deploy it, but I think if you're gonna go on highways, it'd be nice to have something protecting it. If you're driving just dirt roads and going at slower speeds, you could leave it off so when you get to your campsite, you can just pull it out right away. But it would be ideal to have something protecting this. Oddly enough, this corner, the back corner, is also lifting up a little, maybe from the wind kind of blowing it out. I tried to reattach it, but it seems like the corners always, and there's soft fabric all the way up to the corner, but it's just not attaching as it used to. I think it just, I don't know, something's wrong with it where it just, the wear and tear is making it so it doesn't stay as well. So I would hope they have something. I was thinking about just putting on some shock cord loops right here, just holding it intact. The top part is a little bump and the bottom's a little bump, so it should hold it in place without just flying off down a road. One thing I did consider is using a neodymium magnet on the back and the front. In the slot that it goes in, there's a good amount of room, so it wouldn't interfere with anything. And the neodymium magnet actually held pretty well. It held it closed. Problem is that if that magnet did fall out, it would go flying into someone's windshield. So I did want to do that. So I still think some kind of elastic or a basket of some type, just holding it, is the best option. I just wish there was something to hold the corner down so the rest of it doesn't start peeling off. Maybe a button or something, maybe a latch that goes over that buttons it shut. Maybe future models have it already, I don't know, but that's the biggest concern I have with the longevity of this product so far. So that's the awning. The pros are, of course, the most important, that it's quick to take out, put back. There are no poles, so you can actually drive forward, backward. You can maneuver it with the awning out just a little bit. And then you can pull it out a full 9 feet with no poles at all. So if it starts raining, you can pull it out 9 feet, and then you can have a dry area to start putting things, and then you can grab your poles and set it up. And it's just that quick, easy deployment and packaging that just makes it so perfect. Just even filming this last part, it was at the shortest setting, but the sun was getting in the camera and it was getting much warmer than I wanted it. So I just pulled it out more. And now the camera's in the shade, the lens is in the shade, there's no glare. And it's just so easy to just change your mind and adjust the awning in seconds. So that generally is the biggest pro, but that is a huge, huge pro. The cons with this, of course, is price being the biggest one. A $1,000 awning is not going to be within most people's budget. But if you wanted something where you appreciate the quick deployment, it's well worth it. There was even a time in a trailhead where it started raining and we wanted to eat something, so I just pulled it out to the shortest in the parking lot and basically just opened the door and went in and fiddled around looking for things to eat because the rain just doesn't come in. So that is just, it's just the best part, is the quick deployment. Another con with this product, if you are using it the way I am, is the rain will still come through the back of the awning. It'll actually drip down to this middle point because that's the lowest part in the awning. Drip down on the car. The problem is when the car door is closed with one of these gutters, the gutters actually catch the water and divert it around the window. So it doesn't drip in at all. Perfect. But as soon as you open the door, the raindrops hitting the top of the car will drip into the car. And it'll just drip, drip, drip. So that may not be a con for most people. Some people, it probably doesn't affect them at all. But for me, I'm going to devise, they do have a T-track on the bottom, so you can put anything in there. And I do have a little T-track with a wing nut, and I could just put it in there, and have a piece of fabric just divert the water away so it doesn't drip into the door. And I think that'll be sufficient for what I need. So it's not a huge con, it's just a current little annoyance. But we made it work for 3 months with no problem. And we had a lot of rain and worked out just fine. Another con is the inability to divert the rain a certain direction. It comes off both sides and a little off the front, so you wind up having to collect all these rocks, twigs, just to collect the water so it doesn't hit dirt and splash all over. If you leave your shoes out here and it rains, it's going to be covered in dirt if you don't do that. And even then, it's a pretty wide area where the water pours out, so it's not really possible all the time. So that's a big con. If you park in gravel areas, it's not too bad. It's just the inability to tilt it at all is a little problematic, but you can still get by with it. The other con is the wind. The problem with the Velcro corners lifting up. I do wish that they do have some other solution in mind. Maybe a button with elastic on it so we can clip on it and kind of hold it tight. But we need something to clasp onto the corner of the fabric onto this metal bar. Otherwise the Velcro just gives out. And it would be a shame to have to replace the entire fabric of the awning. And it is replaceable, by the way, just because the Velcro is giving out. So we need something that'll just kind of clasp it together. I don't want to glue it together because eventually it's going to wear out from UV or wind damage. So I'll do something wrong. So there has to be something to hold the corners. I think I'll just do a shock cord loops around both ends, but we'll see. Another con with this awning is, of course, the corners, the sharp corners. For my use, it wound up being perfectly fine just because I'm short and the car's taller than the average. If you're putting it on like a Subaru, it's going to be like almost a good 9-10 inches lower, and that'll hit anybody my height or taller right in the head if you hit that corner, and that corner will rip your skull open. So definitely protect it with something soft. I don't know, figure something out, maybe just some kind of pads taped on or clipped on or somehow or another, but you definitely need to protect yourself from those corners. It's just nice having an awning where you could just pull out real quickly for some shade and protection from the rain. In fact, there were many times I just pulled this awning out to shade the car when the sun was coming from this side, and it worked great. And when it's done, you could just pop it back in. It's so easy to deploy that you'll find yourself deploying it multiple times a day. Everywhere you go, unless you're leaving the car stationary, you might put it in and out, but you'll find that you use it probably like 10-20 times more than any other awning that takes several minutes to deploy. Another con with this setup is I'm 5'6" and I can grab the latches and pull it, but Tina had trouble because she was 4 inches shorter than me. It's just too high. So if you have a 4-runner that's lifted and you're using the tool racks, just beware that 5'6" is good comfortable height. 5'5" is a little harder because you got to really raise your arm up, but it's pretty high, so you have to be within a certain height to be able to use it. So I think I'm in an ideal range where I can still use it, but I don't hit my head in the corners. So this is a 7-foot model, and they do have the 5-foot model, which is lighter, and it would have been easier to balance, but it would have been so much shorter. I found with 7 feet, 2 people huddling underneath it when it's raining, there's always some blowing rain on the sides. It's just enough for 2 people. If it was 5 feet wide, we would not have been able to sit without anything in the middle anyway, like a table. We would have to sit right next to each other just to keep away from the sides. And 7 foot is heavier, but I think if I had to do it again, I would go with the 7 feet long model. If you have a smaller car, I may recommend a shorter model, but it's up to you. I would recommend just getting something 5 feet long, 7 feet long, and seeing how much coverage it gives you. And always like give about a foot on both sides for rain splashing down or blowing in at you. I don't know if you noticed, but I do have a cargo box on this side. It's one of those sports toolboxes, and there's a gap under here that I could actually reach up, stick a key and unlock and lock it. And I can actually climb up on the car, reach over the awning to open the box. So getting access to the box with the awning on this side has been no problem at all whatsoever. It was a worry for me, so it's not a problem. I may actually move the cargo box a little closer to give room for more of the solar if I can, but I did slide the mounting racks in quite a bit just to make sure that the rain coming off the top of the rack doesn't come in front of the car here. There's a little channel up here if you touch, I don't know if you're in a 4Runner, there's a little channel up here, and if you get rain behind it, it all drips away. But if you get rain in front of it, it's gonna come pouring forward, so you wanna watch out for that. But overall, this setup worked out really well for me. The reason also I kept it this far forward is I need to be able to open the back door. The way it is right now, I have about a centimeter or less. If I open up the back door, like half an inch, maybe a quarter of an inch of space at the end. So I can't slide it back any further than what it is right now. Now I'm making this review with them knowing nothing about me or what I do, or the fact that I'm making this video at all. I'm hoping they watch it so they actually remedy the corner Velcro situation. But I'm on my own, so I am in no way influenced by the company. I did purchase it as a Kickstarter, so I did get it cheaper than the product is now. Would I recommend this awning to anybody? If you have the money, it's a very worthy investment. I used it so much, like so often, just over and over, because it was so easy to open up and close. In fact, almost every time I would do at least a quarter out, just in case it rained, not if it rained. I would definitely recommend this to anybody that is looking for an awning system that's quick to deploy and lock out and put away. It is pricey. It mounts very well on the toolbar, so I was very happy about that, and it worked out well. The only thing I did differently with the mounting is they give you these plates and bolts to mount onto the bar, but the bolts are too short, so I couldn't get it to reach, so I did go to a hardware store and buy slightly longer bolts that latched in. And you may as well, but you should try it out with the original bolt just to make sure it works or doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, go with one that's slightly longer, not too much longer, because it'll actually kind of bolt down into the bottom of the bar itself. I looked at the odometer on the car, and for the whole Canada trip and back, it was over 7,000 miles. So I drove 7,000 miles with the awning up, not having taken it down or adjusting it. In the first couple of weeks, I would check on the brackets and make sure everything was still tight and nothing came loose with the vibration. I checked multiple times a day. Every time I stopped, I would check it, make sure everything's okay, make sure the aero bars weren't distorted in any way. And 7,000 miles and everything is exactly the way I put it. The only difference is the bolts I purchased at a hardware store are getting rusty, so that might be a problem later. But the original bolts that came with it have no rust on whatsoever. They do have locking washers, so they haven't come loose, and everything is as it was when I left. In fact, the only difference is the awning is dirtier now, and the rolling is slightly uneven, but it doesn't seem to affect how it pulls out or goes back in. Overall, it's still working great. The awning does come with the mounting brackets as well, and as well as a different type of mounting brackets for if you have like one of those square racks, so you can kind of clamp on. But you can purchase different option, but you can purchase other mounting systems. Like I guess they sell a system to mount it to a wall of a house, so you can just pull it out if you want to do that. But overall, I think it's a fantastic awning. I would definitely look into it. Would I pay $1,000 for another one? That's quite steep. Currently, I've seen emails from them that say they are getting it in stock. So they must be out of stock. They're actually still high in demand even at that price. I would wait for maybe a sale from them. At some point, they might have some sale, maybe a Christmas time holiday sale that you can take advantage of, but maybe get on their newsletter just to at least get updates about when they get them in stock. I have seen one of the reviewers from originally when the Kickstarter went out, he had a 10% off discount code if you went through a link. And I don't have anything like that because they don't know that I'm making this video or reviewing this awning or that I even exist at all. Except that they did have to give me a little gift certificate for fixing these things myself. But if you want something like that, I could try to contact them and try to get a 10% discount code or some kind of discount. Even 5% is $50 off, so that's still a good amount for such an expensive system. But if you're interested, just let me know in the comments below and I could try to write them. Hopefully they see this, mostly because I want them to see the corners of the Velcro and see what's happening. And maybe they could engineer a solution that's better than what I'm thinking of, which might be just buttons or elastic sleeve or something. A sleeve in the front might be good just because it helps it protect against bug splatter as well. And that would help. It's just keeping the mechanism clean, especially the ratcheting mechanism, keeping some water out there as you drive through rain. But overall, yeah, I'm loving the awning, so I'm gonna keep using it, and hopefully you can check it out someplace yourself. It's nice to be able to feel it and see how it feels, see how hard it is to pull it out or push it back in before you invest in such an expensive system. If you see me out there, just ask and I'll let you play with a little bit as long as you're careful. And maybe you'll get one yourself and just have a great awning. For me, there are some cons, but overall, I think it's the awning of my dreams, and I will continue to use it for as long as I can. I hope you appreciate the video. There haven't been other reviews I've seen that really thoroughly reviewed the product, and the videos I have seen, it's basically them mounting it and using it for a day or two or something. But again, I've been using this for over 3 months now, almost every day, and drove over 7,000 miles, all different types of roads. And I feel like I can give you an honest review of how it's been behaving and my thoughts on it over just so much use. But again, I will hope they fix the Velcro thing. And other than that, hopefully you can play with one and decide for yourself whether you want it. Again, thanks for watching, and you all take care and have a good day. Bye. One thing I've been experiencing is it's getting kind of, the springs seem uneven, so it kind of wants to roll unevenly. So right now it's on the shortest. Most of the time it works out great though.